WWE Developmental NXT.
Welcome everybody to Wrestling to the Max's NXT review for February 15th, 2017. Hey, and if you want to catch any of our other great content like Raw, SmackDown Live, or 205 Live, well, you do go check out W2Mnet.com. That's the place where you can find all our great reviews, and of course a lot of great written reviews as well as some other great content in the world of wrestling. And also, don't forget, if you're using iTunes, Stitcher, or any other place to find podcasts, make sure you go check us out. Of course, you can find us at the W2M Network. And, of course, you can just search Wrestling to the Max and subscribe to either and be on board with us all the time and have all the great content that you want every week in your dock. But now it is time to talk NXT. Let's do it, Paul.
Yeah, let's jump right in here, man. We got... They opened the show with a quick squash of the Authors of Pain, absolutely annihilating two jobbers. This is something I hope we continue to see. This is what made the Ascension so successful in NXT. I think this is something that could really help the Authors of Pain out. They even hit the Super Collider post-match to put over how absolutely nasty they are.
Yeah, I mean, the Authors of Pain are just a blast because of the fact that they're so dominant. I mean, they're a force to be reckoned with no matter who is out there with them. So, you know, they're just imposing their will, and that's a good thing. You want people to fear them. You want people to see how powerful these guys are, and sure, we've seen them in the past, but they need to continue on this path, especially right now as they're kind of biding their time. They don't want to, you know, have any big matchups too soon. I mean, you've got to spread this thing out a little bit, and especially if you want the Authors of Pain to head into WrestleMania weekend, you know, going into NXT TakeOver Orlando, you want them to be, you know, dominant leading up to that. So not a bad thing here, and, you know, it's just continuing on what they do best, and that's beat people down.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of their future challengers, we're going to jump ahead a little bit in the show here and cut to the promo that DIY got to do where they explain about how their dreams came true in Toronto and how really they went into TakeOver against the Authors of Pain recently, and they knew they were big and bad, but they doubted them, and I think they doubted themselves a little bit, and they want their rematch. They want it as soon as possible, so Ellering brings out the Authors and says they can have their rematch in two weeks, and that gives them plenty of time to go make peace with their families because AOP is going to murder them. DIY, however, is they're raring to go right now. They want the match now. The Revival come into the ring. They beat them down. They lay out Gargano with the Shatter Machine, and the Revival head out of town before the Authors of Pain can get in the ring. So it looks like we're posturing either for DIY to get beat down real quick again, the Revival takes their spots, or we're just planting the seeds for a triple threat at the next TakeOver.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand, you know, any of those options. They're not terrible options, kind of either way you look at it. I want to say this, though. Watching this, though, I had a little confusion. And the reason I had a little confusion here is because the thought process of that the Authors of Pain even needed to come down. And sure, yeah, that's their next opponents, but isn't really the fact that they're champions good enough? And, you know, I also look at the fact that if the Revival's already beaten DIY down, you know, why would they even have to get their hands dirty? So it almost looks like the Authors of Pain make the save to me. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, the Revival books it. I mean, they may have done more damage, but now that the Authors of Pain show up, it's like, hey, you know, all of a sudden we're baby faces even though we're not. It's weird. But I just kind of thought this was a little bit awkward thing for me watching this. I'm like, come on. Do you agree or disagree with that? I don't know.
I see where you're coming from, but if we hadn't had the past interactions already with the Revival and the Authors a little bit that we'd had, I feel like this would be as muddy as you think it is. But the little bits that they've had, it's pretty clear the Revival just want the belts back any way they can, whether it's beating people up or cheap attacks or whatever. And NXT seems pretty intent on getting the Authors of Pain over as these absolute sawed-off monsters, and they are. They're huge guys, and they have a moveset that really does lend to that credence. Then you have DIY, just the the super underdog baby faces who everybody can't help but love, and of course, the ring generals that both Ciampa and Gargano are going to help immensely in all of this as well. But
yeah,
I see your point a little bit.
Yeah, and refresh my memory, because sometimes I honestly do forget things. But I mean, from my memory, the Revival has not attacked the Authors of Pain, right? Never.
They've had
never
promos against them, though, haven't they? Talking about how they wanted the belts back in the last couple of weeks, if I remember correctly.
You're probably right. My memory for some reason tonight's not right on par. But I think that could be something here. That could be a reason for Ellering to send him down. But, I get this without Ellering. The Authors of Pain would be even more loose cannons, right? These guys would be running wild, doing whatever. But with Ellering there, that gives them a brain. And nothing against these guys, but in character, okay?
Right.
He's their brains. That's why they have him hired to make all the right moves. And it's interesting to me that he's the one sending them down. But who knows? Maybe the thought process here is not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, this is almost like a babyface type move. But maybe it's just the fact that Ellering knows these guys are monsters and he wants them to destroy everybody. Like, he's not concerned about, just beating the weaker guys, the guys on the lower end of the totem pole. He wants to even watch these guys beat the best. Mm-hmm. And maybe he's proven a point. So I'm kind of trying to find a way to argue against my point, and I think that's the way I can do it. But other than that, I still, like I say, a little confused on that. But at the end of this, we do see where you're talking about we could end up with a triple threat, and I'm not going to argue with that. In fact, I'm not going to have a problem with the triple threat. I think that makes this even better, because I really feel like the Authors of Pain going in as just a tag team bout, tag teams, just 2 tag teams involved, it may not be as great, just because the Revival, man, they add so much.
Mm-hmm. They really do, and obviously with the TM61 injury and all that happening, the things have gotten shuffled very quickly. And I think if you want to, sort of over deliver on what you were planning on, which is going to be DIY and Team 61, who would probably have had some fantastic matches. I think this is certainly a great way to cover for it, where you have your biggest tag team in the Revival, your best baby faces, maybe on the entire roster of NXT and DIY, and Ellering and the Authors of Pain, who, I mean, with Ellering there, you can't help but to draw parallels to the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, whatever you want to call them, where it's just the big badass effect of these guys want to go in there, beat you up, get paid, and leave. And they might be missing that older school element of getting to the pay window, but the authors are certainly all about just beating people up.
Yeah, that's true. And I like that you bring up kind of that history, too, because that is the way that he has worked in the past, and he's bringing that to a younger generation, and it's okay with me. Like I said, I have no problems with it. I just, had a few questions, but now sitting down, really kind of mulling it over, I don't hate it as much as I did. When I first saw this, I was like, that's dumb. But, I felt like it. I know it sounds silly, but I really felt like, come on, let the other guys do the dirty work. You can sit back in the back and watch them get killed. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know. Maybe, I know what it is, Paul. Maybe the Authors of Pain were afraid that there was going to be a festival of friends, and they wanted to be a part of it. So that could be the case, too. You never know.
I mean, you make a great point. You never know when a festival of friendship is going to break out, and history already tells us that ends poorly. So much so that, have you seen the picture of Gargano tearing down the TV during the segment in front of Ciampa?
I love it. That's why I brought it up. Oh, it's so great, man. I love that. That picture's, solid gold.
Yeah. Don't get any ideas, Tommaso. We're not ready yet.
Yeah, exactly. Although the Psycho Killer is dangerous, so
yeah,
I get it.
Absolutely. We got a bunch of women's division stuff going on in this show, too. So Peyton, Royce, and Billie Kay get their match with Liv Morgan. Morgan's partner is Ember Moon, much to maybe a little bit of surprise, because there's a lot of talk Asuka maybe filling this role, too. It's very short. It's very to the point. Peyton, Royce, and Billie Kay end up double-teaming Morgan. They hit her with the double knee strike to get the victory. This isn't bad, but it doesn't really have enough time to get to anything super good or anything like that. And this, I mean, obviously we're planting seeds, but the point's made here. Royce and Kay together equals bad news, unless you're Asuka and you just murder them.
Yeah. And, and it also says something else here, too. It says that Ember Moon is a great talent. She can be dominant at times, but she's not without fallacies, or I don't know what you want to say. I'm trying to think of the right verbiage here, but she can be really excellent. She can really help you out, but we've seen in the past that just because she's on your team doesn't mean you're going to win. Mm-hmm. She's not a shoe-in. She's not having a Michael Jordan on your team. She's a super talent. But I think this really kind of focuses on just what you said, Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, and the fact that them two as a team are dangerous, and you can bring whatever you want, but they're going to find a way to win if at all possible. And that's exactly what they did here. Mm-hmm. And this is, if this is something where they want to continue it on, and apparently it is, that we had William Regal make an announcement, it makes sense. It really, really does. So I have no problem with them winning. I think this is a good move because, I think for Liv Morgan, especially for her to get to the place where they want her to be that baby face, I think that they feel like that they can get out of her. They've got to have her lose these type matches so she can come back and overcome.
Yeah, and that announcement that Gary's referring to is Regal makes Liv Morgan versus Ember Moon versus Peyton Royce in a number one contenders match next week. Which, I mean, I think the winner of that is going to be fairly obvious in Ember Moon, but certainly I think Liv is... I think you see it every week in the certain intangibles that she brings down the ring. I think she has the great look, and she has the right babyface attitude that they were looking to get out of Carmella. And all that's there. They just haven't touched on the character any. And I feel like that's you're missing an opportunity to at least continually build up a babyface in the wings. Because if what we're all thinking is true and Asuka is main roster and bound post WrestleMania, we're going to need another babyface. And it looks like they're looking to live there. But I don't feel like there's enough build there for her to really fill that spot adequately yet.
Here's a scary but interesting thing about that, and that's the fact that they've been working on her for a long while now, right? Mm-hmm. And she's been there longer than Ember Moon. Ember Moon is pretty much brand new. I mean, she's been here a very, very short time, well, at least on TV, and we all know she's been a part of NXT for a little while. But my point in that is Ember Moon already has the audience gravitated towards her. Mm-hmm. The entrance... Everything that she does, the audience is already gravitating towards her. Where Liv Morgan, it's more of a chore. It's more of a, well, impress us and then we'll follow you. Well, show us what you got. And that's the uphill battle that she faces. And I think you did talk about something that's really important here, and that's the fact that they really need to build that character. They need to give us reasons to really care about who she is. They really need to focus on putting her in places where she's on the mic more often, or maybe we're getting a backstory of who she is, where she grew up, things like that. Things to kind of get us tied into her and to make us care. Looking back in history for NXT, look at the people that they had come across. Sasha Banks, we're now talking about Bayley a lot because she's now the WWE Women's Champion. Those two right there alone, they had so many ways of pulling you in because they showcased their characters. They had more than one way. They didn't just throw it out there and say, "Oh, be a great babyface." No, they showcased them. They were big deals, and I think that's the formula they need to follow Liv Morgan a little bit more. I mean, I think she's got that opportunity. I think it's right there at her hands. It's just they got to put the work into it.
Right. And talking about those two examples, I mean, Bayley, they seem to have gotten behind from the word go, so it's sort of harder to make this point, but they gradually built up that character, whereas Sasha sort of languished as sidekick to constant fodder for whatever up-and-coming babyface was around for the longest time before she got the boss thing going. And that's when all that turned. So, I mean, I think Liv is more in that shoe where she's the baby face right now that everybody's going to beat on to get you to Asuka or Ember Moon at this point now. And they don't have enough it's like we were saying earlier. They don't have that character in there yet, like they had with Bayley from the word go. So, I really want to see. Well, I mean, she's not anything special in the ring yet, but she certainly does have a chance to break out in this match if they so choose. And I just really want to see more of that character come out. There's something there. I think they know that. I hope a lot of people watching know that too, because I feel like she has the goods, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you hope so too, because we all know this. The sad truth about this is the fact that NXT is not stopping this whole idea of signing more talent, especially in the women's division.
Right.
And there's going to be more talent in the indies that are going to be popping over and heading to NXT. And I would hate for her to just hit a wall and then someone pop up and take that spot away from her. Because, in the near future, we're going to be having a tournament, and that tournament will spell, possibly a lot of new names as part of the NXT roster. So who knows? I'm not trying to spell disaster for her. I'm just saying that they've got to get it going, and they need to do it sooner than later. You can't sit here and play for too long, Right. But what do you real quick before we move on, though? What do you think about the Billie Kay and Peyton Royce? I mean, Peyton Royce gets put into this triple threat. Where do we see Billie Kay on this?
They like to use that numbers game a lot. So when there's one, there's both. And I'm sure you're going to have a whole lot of Billie Kay trying to jump in here and there. And for the record, I think we've talked about them a fair bit on this. I love the pairing. I think the pairing's great. It's worked very well. It's grown, I think, sort of organically, not only from their real-life friendship onto the screen, but as far as what they've shown you on screen from them starting to pair up to, everything that they are. They both started out these sort of nasty characters, and, they found each other, and now they're all buddy-buddy, and they realize that the only way to succeed is together, which is a great story. And I still think Billie Kay is a better face, but I've never seen her work heel this long either. And she's grown on me, but I think she's sort of secondary in as far as the moveset they allow her to do as a heel, as well as the promo ability to what Peyton brings. And I think that's why Peyton's in the match over Billie, personally.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. And I just, wonder if they were going to add it into storyline of, is Billie Kay going to be supportive, or is she going to be jealous? I was just kind of curious if they were going to do anything like that, so.
I wouldn't think they would do the split until later, because I would think they're going to be pretty quick rivals with Ember post Asuka, and whether they get the belt in a hurry or not, and then you have them fighting over who's actually the champion or something like that could be a fun way to go.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah, and I mean, I think something else to maybe discuss a little bit here is there is that women's classic, sometime in the summer. Do any of these girls find their way in there, like Liv Morgan? We saw Gargano and Ciampa pretty early in their NXT careers, and Rich Swann fill in spots in the Cruiserweight Classic. Do you think maybe we get 3 or 4 of the NXT girls in there too?
That's a good point, and I could see that. I think that they like to have their talent mixed in, right? Mm-hmm. Because as they were calling the whole, Cruiserweight Classic, there was no promises that they were going to sign everybody, right? They had deals just for that tournament. And I could see this because I really feel like they like to have their own talent to be a part of things like this to prove that they're right there with the rest of these indie talents, right? That, they're not better than, they're not any different. They're right there with them. So I could definitely see that. And what names are going to come out, I'm really not sure. For me personally, if you're going to put a Liv Morgan in there, once again, you got to be smart. You got to do what they did with Rich Swann. Mm-hmm. You got to have her continue on further down the line. Even if you don't have her win, she needs to be in that upper echelon where she gets knocked out, like in the Final Four or, whatever, just somewhere down the line in this whole tournament. So,
right. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I was just, we know they've signed a lot of women to the NXT roster, and a lot of them are in the Performance Center right now. And, a lot of those names are being saved for that tournament right now and everything, but I would think for sure, like a Liv Morgan or an Aaliyah or some of these girls that are in the mid-card area. Maybe you don't get an Ember Moon or a Peyton Royce or a Billie Kay in there, but certainly some of those more mid-card girls are people that they haven't assigned characters to that are on these house shows or something like that. Could end up on the tournament. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's talk about some of the intangibles before we get into all the main event talk here, which is probably going to be a longer segment too. But We get a highlight package for Sanity, who pretty much ruled the roost in NXT last night and looks super, super dangerous. No Way Jose and Roderick Strong get an interview after their match last week with Strong, saying that he's used to being bullied around like that and everything. And Jose puts over how great Ty Dillinger is, and they helped each other out because of respect and because Sanity has the numbers game. And it looks like we're sort of setting up I don't want to say fodder, but certainly something with some top faces in NXT to go against Sanity without getting the top guys involved, like Shinsuke, or we have a video package for the incoming Cassius Ohno on this show too, which looks great, and I can't wait to see him on my NXT TV every week. But you look at the top names, Bobby Roode, another one. They're sort of being kept away, and we're building up these guys through this. So, I mean, we keep talking about Sanity maybe one day having all the belts on NXT. It's looking like that might be a thing that is actually in the works, because you have them go over here, and you have Nikki keep looking competitive in the women's division, and suddenly, maybe at an NXT Brooklyn or something like that, they end up with all the belts.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a situation, and I think that situation, to me, is positive. I look at that, and I've been kind of wanting this. I felt like, this team is dominant for many reasons. One of the biggest reasons is because they can do just that, hold all the gold. And so I'm excited about that. And with Roderick Strong and No Way Jose and, even Ty Dillinger, anyone who is going to face off against this, dominant force is going to be in for, a difficult task, but they'll at the same time make a great match. I mean, they will do a match that will be one of those exciting ones we'll talk about for a while, I think, because you got so many great talents. I mean, let's be honest, Big Damo, or I can't remember his name for NXT.
Killian Dane.
Killian Dane. I see that's going to be hard for me to do. I can usually get past the indie names, but Big Damo was such a great name.
Yeah, it usually takes me a little while too, so don't feel bad.
Yeah. But, Killian Dane, I look at this guy and know, man, he's got so much to offer. Mm-hmm. And of course, Eric Young. And, so I think that, Sanity has quality guys to face off these athletic guys just like Roderick Strong. And so it'll be a lot of fun to watch. And I think they're going in the right direction, especially for Sanity right now. They're a team that, continually has to be dominant, because if they're not, it would be easy, I think, for fans to kind of not take them serious.
Yeah.
And this is the best way to go. We talk about the Authors of Pain, they need to be dominant. Well, yeah, because if they're not dominant, fans will start to, those guys are kind of jokesters. Really not really the real thing. Mm-hmm. No, you want everybody to think those guys are here to kill. And
right.
So they're doing that. That's what they're doing with Sanity. And for them to beat these, upper, if you want to call them upper mid-card baby faces, that's what you got to do. I'm all game.
Right on. Yeah. So let's move on to the main event. First things first, we get video packages for both Tyler Bate and Trent Seven, as Bate will defend the United Kingdom Championship against Seven here. They go about 13 minutes. Tyler wins. I thought this was a pretty gosh darn good main event. They sort of work in a lot of the history in the video packages with each other, which I enjoyed. And then I think the match really shows it off too, where Seven sort of schools Bate, as he's the elder of the tag team in Mustache Mountain, which is what they're both part of, and ends up getting, I don't want to say outworked, but certainly, Bate brings the high energy later on and ends up putting it away. But thoughts on the match, thoughts on the UK title being defended on NXT, and I guess maybe just thoughts on the UK division in general, because next week we're going to see Mark Andrews and Pete Dunne.
Which I can't wait. That's going to be so much fun.
Their match in the tournament was great.
Oh, it was. It was one of the biggest highlights of that tournament. So next week can't come soon enough for NXT. But yeah, for this match, I mean, I look at this and I look at Bate and of course Seven, and these two guys, they had their own great match and do what they do. And I think both guys look good in this, and I really appreciate their work. What's kind of interesting to me, too, about this whole thing is, the fact that they are able to defend the UK championship on NXT and it matters. To me, that's a good thing, especially since they don't have a UK show right now. And this is the only place you can kind of host these matches. And honestly, I like it. I can't say I don't like it because what have we talked about in the past? The NXT roster is great. They do things, but they only have 2 titles. Women's championship and a heavyweight championship. Adding a 3rd title has been something we've kind of talked about here and there. But, until they do come up with a UK show, I think this is great because now, you don't have to have either the women's or the heavyweight championship defended, like this week. They didn't have to have either of them defended. They didn't have to be at the show. We didn't see any of those champions at the show, but we saw Tyler Bate, and he was there and, had a good match. So, overall, I'm completely happy with the way it's working out. And hey, the better, athletes that we're getting out of the UK coming over and being a part of NXT, it's good for me because I get a chance to see them on Wednesdays, and it adds to this show.
Right. I think this is a great business plan for what they're trying to accomplish here. Obviously, they're setting up the UK thing and all of that for whenever that's going to happen. The same audience that is drawn to the United Kingdom independent circuit is the same people who have flocked to NXT and continue to rave about it. So those more indie-centric fans. And the best way to get these guys over with that group is to have them show up on NXT every week. I don't know if this is still true, but NXT is usually in the top 5 or the top 3 rated shows on the network every week. So this is a great way to get eyes on them without having to bring them on the main roster. It helps these guys establish names with not only people here in the States, but everywhere else who aren't familiar with them. And yeah, whenever that UK show gets off, hopefully they're going to have some. They're falling back on the top 4 or 5, 6 guys that they've had so far. We haven't seen a lot of the others yet, but these are the guys they seem to want to go to work with at the top of the card in the UK, and that's great. And I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited for next week too. Mark Andrews, Pete Dunne are just they're a can't miss combination. These two are too. They're a tag team for a reason. This was a perfectly good match too, and absolutely worth your time. Do you think we will ever see the UK title defended on a TakeOver special?
If they don't get the UK show up and going, yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. I can totally see that because, like I said before, on those specials, you have the best matches, that the NXT has to offer, right? And I think these UK guys have a lot to offer the NXT roster, while they're waiting for their own home. I think that that's a great possibility, and it's something that I think will matter because, these shows, like you said, are booked to be great, and that'll be a big deal, be a big part of it. Now if they do have the UK show eventually, I could see where we may not see that happen, but until then, yeah, I do.
I agree. I think we will. I don't know if it'll be as soon as TakeOver Orlando as Progress has. They work with a lot of these guys, and they're going to be around for the WWN Live weekend during that week. And obviously Evolve and all that usually doesn't run against NXT for the specific reason that they share talent with NXT too. But so it is certainly possible we could see the title defended there. I just don't know if that's going to happen or not. But I absolutely agree with you. We'll see it on there at some point. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Yeah. I agree.
That's your NXT for the week. A solid episode. Not a ton happening, but everything is setting up towards big things, and that's what you want.
You're totally right on that. So hopefully we'll get a chance to have more than just that big match between Andrews and Dunn. I'm sure that show will be a lot of fun to watch too, and next week will be exciting. So, but until we get to that point, we are going to head on out of here. Just to let everybody know once again to go find all our content. If you really like this show and you want to find more, make sure you go check out W2Mnet.com. And also, hey, if you haven't subscribed already, go subscribe to the W2M Network or even just Wrestling to the Max. If you just want to hear our show and you just want us to get, on your dock and maybe not all the other shows in the network, just go subscribe to the Wrestling to the Max. Until next time, though, guys, we'll see you guys down the road.
Take it easy, folks.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.